Hello, viewers. Welcome back to a brand new podcast. Ayurveda has been a part of India since inception, and it has been more than 5,000 years now. A lot of different countries are now adapting and practicing Ayurveda as a part of their medical sciences. Our guest today is from a family who has contributed to Ayurveda a lot, and he is the sixth generation young entrepreneur who has converted his company from zero to 100 crore. I am talking about Dr. Vaidya, and today we are meeting Arjun Vaidya from Dr. Vaidya. Firstly, welcome Arjun to my channel. Thank you so much for sparing time today.
Thank you, Mark.
You've covered this in a lot of podcasts, but yes, that's the main essence of meeting you to understand about Dr. Vaidya. We understand that your ancestors had started this venture wherein in an Indian society they were working like a Vaid, right? And you have an experience. I mean, your ancestors they have an experience of 150 years is what I researched about you. So tell us about Dr. Vaidya. Do you keep or do you give the credit 100% to yourself for the success, or you would want to partially share it with your ancestors as well?
Yeah, look, I can't take the credit 100% for myself. I think we have to take some credit.
Right.
Because the business was not a business. जब मेरे दादाजी की डेथ हुई थी मेरे दादाजी क्लिनिक चलाते थे. He ran one clinic and he built a fantastic loyal database of consumers, lakhs of customers, lakhs of patients across the country. And I was very fortunate कि मुझे पूरी IP मिल गई, सब formulations भी मिल गए, which was very important.
Right.
So what we got was a blueprint. What we got was a setup.
Correct.
What we got was an infrastructure.
Yeah.
What we got was a floor plate. But floor plate पे आपको घर बनाना होता है ना. So from there we built a consumer brand out of it. From there we engaged with consumers online. From there we went D2C. So we'll take credit for the second leg of Dr. Vaidya, the journey of Dr. Vaidya is a D2C brand, new age brand, creation of the brand. But जो legacy है, जो IP थी, जो formulations थे, without that we would be nowhere, right? So I think it's a 50-50 in terms of credit. We did a lot with the brand from what we inherited, but very importantly, we can never forget the amount of effort 150 years of my family has got us.
Right. So, what I want to check, Arjun, is that 2016 is when you had started it, right?
Correct.
So back then there was Dabur, there was Himalaya already existing. So did you think that you will be able to compete with such big brands back then?
Honestly, I was very realistic about what my position was in the market and what my position should be. A lot of people said, do you think Patanjali was competition for you? No, Patanjali was aspiration. Dr. Vaidya's, when we exited the business, did 100 crore ARR. Patanjali did 10,000 at that time. So they're 100 times bigger than us. So I think, yes, it was difficult to build a brand when there were so many large behemoths in the market. Yes, when we tried offline, it was really hard. We were massively unsuccessful in 2017 when we went to GT and we went to offline.
Okay.
Because there was always competition in front of us. But in the online space, we won. So online space में अगर आप पूछो तो honestly we were the best brand. Or one of the best brands.
Maybe offline में इन सबके stores हैं.
But हमारी aspiration वो थी नहीं. I didn't ever say I want to beat Patanjali in GT. What I said is I want to be a new age Ayurvedic products brand that appeals to modern consumers, that owns the online market. And 2 years after my exit, I can say I did own the online market. In that space, we gave everybody a run for their money and maybe beat most of these large incumbents as well.
Right. To start any business, Arjun, there are two pillars. One is the product, the vision, the idea, and the other one is funds. So do you think that you had both of them with you to begin the journey of an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'll say one thing. I think we were very lucky that we were helped with capital early on, right? So lots of entrepreneurs, including many entrepreneurs that I invest in as well, raise pre-seed rounds, seed rounds, initial 2, 3, 4 crore to get the business off and running. Because I inherited my dada's company, there were some reserves in the company. So the entire pre-seed seed round was done by my family. They invested 3.5 crore in the business on day one, which was the reserves of the company. That's what I started with.
Right.
So I got to safeguard equity and I got to start the business saying, यार कर लेंगे, try कर लेंगे, push कर लेंगे, right? And that was a big, massive benefit for me as I started. And that took me to the first 2.5 years of establishing product market fit, of understanding my customer, of understanding the product, of understanding where my brand will sit in the ecosystem.
Right.
From there, when we figured that out for 2.5 years, we got capital from RT Sanjeev Goenka Group. We got 15 CR in primary equity in the business at that time. And I think that was a massive boost. But you can never discount what that 3-4 crore got me in terms of confidence, in terms of the ability to make mistakes, the ability to figure out what worked for me and what didn't. I think that was really crucial.
So now, have you sold 100% stake to...
Completely, 100%.
So
you're taking my interview in my new avatar, new office, new venture. So involvement in Dr. Vaidya is not there today.
So how was it for you to sell that legacy to somebody which your ancestors, they had started?
I think, Mayank, it's a very good question. And it's a really hard thing to do. As a founder, you never think that at some point I'll sell this, I'll let it go. Right? It's 95% of your day. You wake up in the morning, all you think about is this. When you go to sleep at night, all you think about is this. So I think for founders, their startup, their company is their life.
Correct.
It's their life, their livelihood, their reason for being, their right to win. So I understood a lot of this exit, investment, shareholder value creation, etc., all of that. And so we took a very educated decision. We took a very unemotional decision where Trisha, my wife, and my co-founder at the time sat down and assessed the pros and cons of taking this exit. I think we took a paper, literally listed down the pros and cons, right? With that, we also did one more thing. We said, hey, where does this business go from here? This business will grow online to a certain extent, but after it'll have to go offline.
Yeah.
And in offline, they're not the right people. We don't know how to build this business offline. Right. And so that was a large part of the decision to let it go, because I think what's important to remember is that Dr. Vaidya's will always be my family's name and my family's legacy. Regardless of who runs it, who built it, etc., all of that, that name on the door will continue to be ours. And so, other than the fact that we are CEO, not CEO, founder, not founder, operation involved, not operation involved, we had to think of my dada's legacy as well.
Correct.
And what would be the right way to take forward his legacy?
So had you not thought that let me keep at least 5% or 10% share of the company, so that, with the name, you have some portion of the company as well?
No, there are only two ways to do it. Either you keep a larger share or you keep no share.
Okay.
Keeping a little bit without having operational involvement is something I didn't think was the right thing to do, because if it's somebody else's, it should be under their direction, not my direction.
Right.
And if I am the founder and I have 5-10%,
right,
it will be in my mind to always push ke yaar, ye change karo, ye dekho, it should be like this, it should be like that, why don't you change this? And that doesn't help anyone. Because the person who's in charge is the person who's in charge is the person who's in charge.
Right. So you sold the company in March 2021.
April
2021. So it has been 2 years. Are you still observing, how the company is doing?
My dad said one thing when he decided to sell the company. He said, we sowed the seed, doctor, there's a plant today. Right? Whether it becomes the biggest tree in the world or doesn't, whether the plant survives or doesn't survive, it's not your destiny anymore. Your job is now to be a customer and a silent spectator.
Okay.
Clap when the company does well, but that's about it.
Sure. Tell us a little about your wife's role at Dr. Vaidya's.
Look, if my wife didn't join the business would have never been a success. I started 6-7 months, I ran myself and I couldn't do it. I launched offline, I failed miserably. There were too many departments: sales, distribution, marketing, strategy, supply chain, operations, logistics, warehousing, customer service. It was just too much for me to handle. And so at 25, I was a 5 on 10 at everything in my business. When we decided that offline is not working, we thought about what's the next opportunity for this business. The next opportunity for this business, according to us, or the place where there was gap, was online. And that's what she told me. Now, she had been in the founding team of
Nika.
in the early team of Nykaa, so she knew e-commerce.
Right.
So I convinced her after we got engaged to join the business because I said, I don't know e-commerce, you do.
Yeah.
So if you know e-commerce, you need to come and help me do it. The most important thing that helped us as a group of founders in this business together was complementary skill sets. She came to the business with a strong knowledge of operations, of day to day, of performance marketing, of customer service, of which I didn't have.
Right.
And so I handed over these responsibilities to her without thinking twice. She did what she was good at, and I was great at sales, marketing, brand, business development, running the factory, legal. So I managed all of those things.
So you're saying when you started the company, your vision was to sell offline, like everybody else in the market?
Because it was 2016.
Right.
D2C didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was all new at that time, right?
Yeah.
So I think at that time, the place to go was offline. That was a way to build the business.
Right. I think I would not ask too many questions about Dr. Vaidya now because that chapter is closed. But definitely, we would want to understand a little about you, your family more in terms of, tell us about your younger days. So while I was doing my research, I saw that you studied in Dhirubhai Ambani school, and a lot of kids aspire to be in that school. How was your school journey back then?
Look, I think it was a fantastic journey for me. I studied at one of Mumbai's most prestigious institutions.
Yeah.
Prior to Ambani, I was also in Cathedral, which was one of the best schools in Bombay as well. And I was a very good student. I was not so good at sport. I grew up a very chubby kid. I aspired to play sport.
It doesn't look like though.
Today I'm very into sport and active lifestyle and fitness.
Yeah.
But as I grew up, I wanted to be, but I was never good at it, right?
Right.
And so I think school was all about academics for me. Outside of academics, I tried to play sport. I was never good enough. And so I did a lot of cultural activities, elocution, dramatics, debates. Those were where I spent a lot of my time. But I was always top 5 people in the class. I was a great student in school. I got the opportunity to move to the Ambani school in the 11th grade and study IB or the International Baccalaureate.
Okay.
Because I knew I wanted to go abroad after
your school,
after my school to do my undergrad abroad. And so I went to Ambani school. I think Dhirubhai Ambani International School is academically one of the best schools in the country, if not the best school in the country. And it pushed me to a different level of excellence, right? It pushed me to...
How is it different from normal school or the cathedral school?
I think that it's a school that strives for excellence and wants all their students to do really well in their domain. Academically, it's a very strong school. And so it pushed me to do even better. In Cathedral, maybe I was top 1, 2, 3 students. In Ambani, I was top 10 students. I was not used to being top 10. I tried to go from top 10 to top 1, 2, 3, right? And eventually, when I finished school, I came maybe second, third in terms of the final grades, etc., all of that. So it pushed me to do better. It pushed me to become stronger academically, made me a more well-rounded person. Mm-hmm. It prepared me for my education in the US. It allowed me to get into an Ivy League college, which was Brown. It had the best 4 years of my life. So I think it was a school that showed me a lot about, and the school's motto is dare to dream, learn to excel. And a lot of that I still live today in my life. Right?
So can we say your school time was better than your college?
No. You can't say that because while I loved my school days, the best 4 years of my life happened in the US in my undergrad. I went to college in 2009. I came back in 2013. I went to Brown University, which is one of the most liberal universities in the world, one of the best culture you can see in a college environment anywhere in the world. I had an outstanding experience in the classroom. I studied economics and international relations. Right. I went to study biotech, actually, to take forward my Dada's Ayurveda legacy. But I got interested in politics, business, economics, sociology, these kind of subjects. And I studied this in college. It's a college where they tell you study only what you like or what you want to do. There's no requirements. There's no, you have to take this, you have to take that. It's completely open. You can create your own classes. So we created a class called the Economics of Football ourselves, right? So I graduated Brown with the 4.0. I was honors student. I graduated with honors called magna cum laude. I was inducted into an honor society called Phi Beta Kappa, which takes the top 1% of students all across the US. So I had a great academic experience, but I think lots of what I learned at Brown was outside the classroom. I spent a lot of time in extracurriculars. I was the president of the international organization. I ran the cricket team, revived and ran the cricket team in college. I worked for the newspaper, sold ad spaces for the newspaper. So I think a lot of fun in college. Lots of friends outside of India. I grew up in Bombay. The max I'd spent was 2 weeks on a family vacation outside of India.
Right.
And then I was put in this environment where there were only 11 people from India in my class. Out of 1,350 students, only 11 were from India. And now I can safely say when I got married 6 years ago, 75 of my friends from outside of India who went to college with me came down for my wedding. My best friends today, one is in Mauritius, one is Colombian but lives in New York,
Okay.
one is in Mexico as we speak right now, one is in Chandigarh, and one is in London/Germany.
Yeah.
So it's truly a global infrastructure.
Yeah. So, this is, my next question around this would be that once you're outside India, I think 90% of the population doesn't want to come back to India because of the environment that you get outside. So, what was your motivation to come back?
Look, Mank, I never thought even once of staying in the US after my studies. I was, I would say, an anomaly at that time because most of my friends who were in college with me did 1, 2, 3 years in the US. Maybe some of them did an MBA, and then a lot of them came back. Today, if you ask me from my graduating class of 2013, I would say at least 70% are back in India, which would have been 30% if you look 5 years before. So clearly something's happening in India. I'm very patriotic. I wear this band with the Indian flag on my hand. I've been wearing it for the last 13 years.
That's very nice.
And I knew the future is in India, right? I knew that there's lots of value to be created in our country. And so I wanted to come back to India. What I was lucky to see was something which was a little bit practical. And the practical was I spent 4 years in the US, the best 4 years of my life. I became used to that life in the US. And life is a little bit more structured. Quality of life is different. Infrastructure is different.
Right.
Seamlessness is different. And but we've moved far forward in India in terms of quality of life, which I'll talk about a little later. And so I said, if I spend 4 years in the US, I then work for 2, 3 years, then I do an MBA for 2 years, and I come back to India 8 to 10 years later, I'll become so used to the life there, I'll not be able to readjust to life here.
Correct.
Right? I remember when I came back to India in 2013, I suffered from massive acidity because I was not used to the spice levels of food in India. Think about it, right? So I think I made a very conscious call to say, I want to make my future in this country. I'm clear I want to live in India long term. If I want to live in India long term, why should I wait to live in the US for a little bit and then come back? I'll come straight back.
Right.
And it gave me the advantage. Now I've been here for 10 years since I finished college. It gave me the advantage of having that little bit more time, a little bit more understanding the way business is done, that little bit more infrastructure, community, network in India, which maybe someone who came 3 years later may not have as much. Eventually, 10, 15 years later, it all equates out. But I think I got a little bit of a head start. And I think it was the best decision of my life to move straight back to India after college.
Sure. So you were saying something about the lifestyle that you have in US. Would you like to talk about that?
Like, I think life in India is massively seamless now. I think we still have infrastructure development which is happening. There is some noise happening around us because we are in the heart of Bombay recording this podcast in BKC, where the most development is happening.
Correct.
Mumbai will spend more in infrastructure in the next 5 years than London has spent in 75 years.
Yeah.
Just think about that, right? So I think infrastructurally we have some time to go, but I can tell you in the next 3 years, Mumbai will become a very, very, very infrastructurally forward city. But there are things here which you just take for granted.
Right.
The experience of going to an airport in Bombay, in Delhi, in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Chennai is like none other. You have your DigiYatra, you upload your boarding pass there, you connect your Aadhaar card to DigiLocker. If you don't have a bag to check in, you get to the gate of the airport. You show your face and you walk into the airport.
Right.
You have a faster security check. I can tell you in Bombay T1, I reach my gate within 10 minutes of entering the airport. We were talking about you wanting to reach the airport 2.5 hours before. I don't reach for a domestic flight more than 1 hour before my flight, and I've never missed a flight. UPI, Aadhaar, ABHA from a health perspective. Just imagine everybody in the country having a QR code. You go to hospital, you check in with your QR code, it's scanned and the doctor knows your entire medical history. ONDC, open network for e-commerce infrastructure. Who can talk about this globally?
So are you saying that this is not available globally? It's only
Not at all.
Okay.
The seamlessness of DigiYatra, DigiLocker does not exist. The seamlessness which ONDC will give will not exist. ABHA type infrastructure does not exist. Fine, UPI, tap payment, phone payment, digital credit cards exist in the West, but in the rest of the developing world, UPI is being adopted left, right, and center. It's being imported to other countries.
Right.
It's going to be one of India's largest exports. It's going to be digital completely. This is something we take for granted in our country.
Right.
I am going to Turkey in March of 2024 with friends. On 7th to 10th March, I'm going for a trip to Turkey. I went on an app built by an Indian company called Atlas this morning as I was walking to the gym. They have my passport, my US visa, my Schengen visa, my UK visa already uploaded to that app. I said, apply for Turkish visa. It pulled all my data. It asked me whether I'm traveling after May 19th or before May 19th. I clicked after May 19th. I paid 5,000 rupees, 4,000 of which was the Turkish government fee, 1,000 was the processing fee, and my visa was applied for. In less than 5 minutes, I got a Turkish visa applied for. It's amazing. It's just amazing how far forward we are moving in terms of tech, how different our country is in terms of consumption. Like I've invested in a company called Cuckoo FM.
Right.
It's built India's largest audio content platform in regional languages. No such business has been built in the world, except in China, maybe Himalaya. They have 3 million paid subscribers who spend on average more than 1 hour per day on the app learning educational content, self-help, religion, self-improvement, Bhagavad Gita, stock trading, intraday trading, psychology of money, book summary in Hindi.
So is it like a podcast?
It's not a podcast. It's more one-to-one communication. Like one person is talking. It's narration. But it's all positive. It's all improvement. It's all upliftment. Think about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, book summary in Hindi. That's one of the most listened to content on the platform. India is a unique country.
Right.
But the seamlessness of life that we live is taken for granted.
But even then, I understand you talking about technology, which is improving in India, whether it's technology or infrastructure. But even then, we see a lot of people are still wanting to move out of India. Why do you think?
I think the number is much lower than it was 10 years ago.
Right.
And that number will continue to reduce. Yes, I'm not saying there are no problems in our country. There are problems in our country. There are people who want to move out of our country. But this grass is green on the other side. Trust me, in the next 10, 15 years, you'll see even less moving. And look, there will always be people move from the US to India as well. People move from the US to Europe as well. People go from New York to London. So there will be some movement, obviously. But the grass is green on the other side. That will reduce as we get better and better.
What do you have to say about the entrepreneurs in India right now?
There is no better time to build than now. I think entrepreneurship has matured in India. Startups are mainstream. I was recently on Amazon Prime TV show called Mission Startup.
Right.
I went to an office of a company we're looking at to invest. He put on his Google TV, and that was the second thing that came on the big banner on Google TV. Think about that. Entrepreneurship startups have become mainstream. Entrepreneurs are now heroes like cricketers and Bollywood actors.
Like you are.
There is money that's gone into the ecosystem, both from India and from the West. I think the greatest thing that will happen over the next 10 years in India is that there will be entrepreneurs coming outside the top 5 cities of India. There will not just be entrepreneurs in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai. There will be lots of entrepreneurs coming out of Ahmedabad, Surat, Pune, Jhansi, Guwahati, Indore, Jaipur, Jodhpur. And if and when that happens, and I'll tell you one thing, it's all of us in the ecosystem, it's our job to make this happen. When India has 10 more Bangalores and 10 more Mumbais and 10 more Delhis, that is when India would have arrived. And I'm seeing signs of it. I travel all over the country, all through the year, meeting entrepreneurs in the smallest cities of our country.
Right.
And I can say there's lots happening. But more and more of us need to go there. and discover what it is that's happening.
So now that we've moved on already, I would want to understand about this your new venture, which is V3 Ventures, and so tell us about that. From the last 2 years, you've been working on that, and I'm sure that you're meeting a lot of new entrepreneurs and companies who are looking for funds, right?
So, I'll tell you first why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I
Right.
built a company called Dr Vaidya. I scaled it to India's largest D2C Ayurveda brand. I took it to an exit. And then I had time on my hands. With this time, I spent a lot of time helping entrepreneurs, helping young founders. I gave 12 hours of my week pro bono to these young founders. I realized I can help. My advice helps, my insights help. And so I said, can I also add some capital and enable these people? That started an angel investment journey, which is now more than 100 companies.
100 companies.
Yes. And then I started enjoying that. I said, I built one Dr. Vaidya's. Can I enable 1,000 Dr. Vaidya's? Through investment, through mentorship, I teach India's largest cohort-based course on D2C and e-commerce through a platform called Crore Start. So I think all of these things really helped me figure out what my purpose in life was. And when this was clear that I wanted to do it, I said I have to do this more structurally now. And so I partnered with a large private equity fund in Belgium called World Invest, who has been in India for the last 12 years. Investors in Sula, Viba, Epigamia, Purple, Wakefit, Heads Up for Tails, Lahori Jeera Soda, largely consumer focused, to create a new VC fund structure called V3 Ventures to invest in early stage consumer facing businesses, driving the consumer revolutions of tomorrow across consumer technology, brands, platforms, all of those pieces.
So, what is that partnership between you two?
So, this fund is the only LP or the only investor in my fund.
Okay.
And I'm the general partner. So, I invest with them as well.
Okay.
But I manage the capital, I find the opportunities, I engage with the founders, manage the portfolio. So, that's the infrastructure.
So, what is the current portfolio that you manage?
We have 6 companies right now in the portfolio, adding 2 more companies. There's Cuckoo FM, there's Eka Care, which is a full stack health platform building on ABHA. There is Entry, which is a regional language job upskilling platform. They started as Kerala government job prep, and now they teach people coding and other work skills in regional languages. There is Go Zero, a low-cal zero sugar ice cream. There is Dil Foods, a unique, disruptive, non-capex, asset-light QSR cloud kitchen brand.
So mostly, I could sense it's
B2C.
B2C.
Consumer-facing
but
businesses.
Not technology-based companies.
Cuckoo FM is completely technology.
Yeah.
So is Entry. So is Eka Care. So it's a mix of consumer technology, brands, and platforms.
So, we're very dynamic these days, Arjun. So I would not ask that what is your long-term vision. You're still very young, and we wish you all the best for your future journey as well. But we would still want to understand, I won't say that what is your long-term vision, but what do you want to achieve in next 5 years?
Look, I don't even look 5 years out. Honestly, if you tell me,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I plan my life in 1 year sprints.
Okay.
Usually 6 month sprints, and then 1 year sprints. But I would say, let's say, broadly speaking, I think entrepreneurship in India, startups in India, it's being talked about a lot, but we're at the beginning of this massive revolution that's in front of us. Just the beginning of this massive revolution. And so over the next 5 years, I want to be one of the key enablers in this ecosystem to help nurture, mentor, guide, advise, and invest in the next generation of founders.
Right.
The next Dr. Vaidyas. If I can be a part of that, it'll be amazing.